Hey everyone, me and Buster Green here with another week of my comprehensive review of Gundam Witch from Mercury, and we are at the penultimate episode of the season. Unfortunately, the rating is on the wall right now that despite this being one of the hottest animes of the year and getting a great reception, this is pretty much it. Like, this is the second to last episode, and then there's one more episode after this one, which will probably wrap up all the loose ends of the show and hopefully give the characters a happy ending. With as far as we are right now, I kind of feel like they weren't planning to do it like this, since this whole season definitely felt like they were pressing the fast forward button down aggressively, and there were a few episodes where just like way too much happened way too fast. But there's still some hope that if there is enough demand for more Witch from Mercury, they still could at this point greenlight a season 3. I'm just not expecting it. I am hopeful, though, that if there is a Season 3, we might have a time jump like Gundam 00 and see the characters a little bit older. But who knows? The Gundam Seed movie is supposedly finally coming out this year, so maybe after the Gundam Seed movie, there'll be a G-Witch movie. That could happen, right? Anyway, let's do the quick meme roundup and the recap. So the last episode was mostly Prospero riding around the Quiet Zero, going nuts and destroying the universe. And while that was happening, Ghoul and Soletta finally had their dramatic final battle, which was just a fencing battle, because every once in a while Gundam ends in a fencing battle. So we got our typical Tanuki meme of the week, and this time it's Tanuki defeats Ghoul in a saber battle. And the saber battle was a pretty big meme point, with people just joking that Ghoul totally threw away the battle, and yeah, I can agree to that. Afia here drew this hilarious chibi comic of Soletta about to confront Miorine after that and being given advice by some of the best previous Gundam pilots, and the advice is hilariously bad. And then the main meme point of the week was Dirty Miorine is hilarious. Various people joked on how ridiculous she looked and how it made so much sense that she ended up with Soletta because, of course, who else would want her? We got this Japanese meme here where she's in her room drinking energy drinks and playing PS2, and Ghoul shows Soletta how bad she is. Someone redrew the Soletta stealing a ham meme, but it's Miorine doing it instead. And many people point out online that Miorine's pajama outfit bears a disturbing resemblance to the Japanese school uniform of women's bathing suits, so yeah, that also became a thing. Also, the last meme was that someone was just so incredibly fascinated about what happened between these two moments of Miorine being slightly horny and dirty in a hallway to suddenly she bounces out around a corner and both she and Soletta are perfectly dressed. A majority of people online speculated that Soletta just took some time out of her day to literally put Miorine back together, and that's how that happened. That's gotta be what happened, right? Anyway, yeah, so Soleil Mio is back on. Everyone's super convinced now they're getting married unless we have a tragic last-second Gundam kill 'em all ending. I mentioned that overall I've been kind of disappointed that Cecilia has no real investment or participation in the show's final battle. And I was also kind of surprised that in the long run of the show, she mostly came down to being just a nosy busybody or otherwise a guidance counselor. P-Koi over here joked that Cecilia just existed to be the show's straight girl. Anyway, the next episode will officially be the final battle of G-Witch, unless there is another season. And someone also pointed out that Choo-Choo was going to be just fine fighting in the Quiet Zero blind, because her first episode intro she had to pilot a mobile suit blind in a minefield. So yeah, that actually works out. Anyway, yeah, there's also a good chance in the next episode Soletta and Miorine will finally have to kill Lady Prospero because she's taken her point as a Shara Rao final crazy evil person in a mask role now. She kind of always was that, but I kind of still think that she's kind of justified in trying to bring back her dead daughter. So I don't know, I'm kind of besides myself on who's in the wrong in this one. Finally, in random unrelated news, JAXA, the Japanese space agency, they're kind of like Japan's NASA. They are sending a satellite to Mercury this year, and the Mercury satellite is named the Mercury Intelligent Orbiter, or MEO for short. And because Science Nerds got a Science Nerd, they officially declared a crossover with Gundam Witch from Mercury, which comes down to two things. On the Earth side, Soletta and Miorine will probably pop up in a few commercials promoting JAXA, and on the space side, this means that MEO is going to Mercury, and MEO and Mercury are getting together in real life. Haha, science nerds. Alright, enough of that, let's get into the episode. Alright, so episode 23 resumes with Soletta in the middle of the final battle. It's Caliburn versus Ariel, Ariel versus Soletta. Soletta is slowly being microwaved to death by the Caliburn, and it's hurting her. We're in the middle of this fight. It's been going on since the last episode. It seems like rather literally this episode started like seconds after the last one ended. And Soletta is trying her best to reason with Aerie and make Aerie stand down, but Aerie is just not having it. So Soletta's flying around, chasing Aerie, getting chased by Aerie's bits, and Aerie's just telling Soletta to go back to school. Elsewhere, Ghoul and Lana are also fighting. Their fight has fully started, and Lana is going nuts with the gun permit, and he's just trying to kill Mireen. He blames Mireen's Gundam company for killing Petra, except Petra's still alive. Lana ends up hitting the Earth House kids, who are back in their bus ship. Choo-Choo launches off in her demi-barding, and she's carrying that mysterious ball thing from the last episode. Now, after last week, someone had told me that this ball thing was a piece of the Begwehr, the anti-Gundam weapon from the prologue, but that's wrong. This episode, you see more of it, and it appears to more clearly be a space capsule-like item. Like, if I had to, like, say what it is, I think it's, like, the top capsule of, like, the old Apollo, like, space rocket. So, yeah, anyway, on top of that, a bunch of the main characters are all riding inside it, too. Like, Mireen's in there, Martin's in there, Kananji's there. I guess they're all going off to the Quiet Zero, and they're going to, like, attack it on foot. Okay, sure, yeah, that makes sense, because the space capsule is, like, from the 1960s, so it doesn't use permit, and that's why they're using it to get in there. Okay, cue the opening. Oh, by the way, hey, if you didn't pay attention, this week they updated the opening, and for some reason there's a lot of new footage, mostly of this battle that is happening in this episode, but not footage from the episode, like the opening animators did their own version of the battle. It's pretty crazy stuff. Anyway, so the Schwarzette continues just attacking the shit out of Ghoul. Its gun explodes and turns into this like sick-ass new Gundam fin funnel wing thing. Lada just is going apeshit nuts on Ghoul. He starts hanging with the funnels from the Schwarzette. He's super pissed at Ghoul because Ghoul killed their dad, but even more than that, he's pissed mostly that Ghoul didn't tell him right away about it. Then we get this really nice shot of the Quiet Zero's permit field as the SAL army is scoping it out. Space Sheriff Gustin sends the fleet a message that Delling Rembrandt is back and alive, and Delling requests an emergency meeting with the SAL to clarify what's going on and like stop the battle. Then we're back at the Caliburn versus Aerie fight. Soletta is still being microwaved to death, and Aerie does not want to hurt Soletta, so Aerie is slowly trying to disable the Caliburn. And as this fight is going on, babies are flying around, and it's a very classic Gundam psycho Thematic fight, and Soletta and Aerie is just trying to get Soletta to stop fighting. This battle is completely insane because while it's like fully within the long-running Gundam tropes to have like psychedelic ghost manifestations like in the middle of your Gundam battle, I want to say this is the most I've ever seen a Gundam pilot trying to fight back against it. Like the only thing I can even like compare this to is like the time Amuro freaked out seeing the demonic hallucination of Dozozabi's fighting spirit as he died. But honestly, this episode is even crazier than that, because Soletta is literally seeing every single one of the Ariel's bits as little clone babies. And Soletta is honestly like pouring her heart out because she does, at her core, really do love Aerie and her mom, and she doesn't want them to go down this path. But Aerie says Soletta just doesn't understand anything going on, and Aerie finally declares full war on Soletta. Prosper is watching the battle, and she does seem honestly touched that Soletta really does care about her so much. Anyway, at this point, Quiet Zero puts out an energy pulse, and all the mobile suits around it shut down. I'm not sure why this happened. Maybe it happened because Prosper lost her cool. But anyway, Choo-Choo takes advantage of the opening, and she flies towards the Quiet Zero. Aerie is shocked because she wants the Quiet Zero to keep going, and Prosper grabs a gun, and she says she has to do pest control. I guess it wasn't Prosper shutting down the Quiet Zero. It was probably one of the Saboteur teams. So anyway, the American guy from the SAL decides to ignore Delling's request for a meeting, and he tips his hand that he actually has a complete solar system weapon from the end of the original Gundam series, and he's going to use it to fry the Quiet Zero and just kill everyone. And then he's just going to blame it on a weapons misfire if anyone asks why he did it. So, holy shit, this entire episode is kind of like the entire last arc of Gundam, like the entire last movie crammed into a single episode. Anyway, Captain America drops his hand that his plan is to fry the Quiet Zero, kill Mireen, kill Delling, and then act like it was a big accident. And then he's going to put the Pale Witches and OG Elon in charge of the Bennett group. Anyway, so Choo Choo finally gets the landing pod to the Quiet Zero, and Kanaji, Mireen, Elon, Choo Choo all pop out of it. Kanaji gives Bell a gun because he has an extra gun and he doesn't want to give it to the kids. And Bell is super awkward with the gun. Meanwhile, inside the Quiet Zero, a bunch of Haros show up, and the Haros immediately whip out machine guns, and we have ourselves a party. Now, meanwhile, Lada is being microwaved by the Chorzette, and he doesn't care because he just wants to kill Ghoul. Ghoul, shockingly though, is doing incredibly well avoiding the Chorzette because he's just gotten used to fighting Gundams. Ghoul gets his legs cut off, but he doesn't care. Ghoul is a great freaking pilot. Lada finally refers to himself by the name Lada Jaturk, and I think at this point he kills Ghoul. There's a dramatic flashback to the day Ghoul met Lada, when Lada was first adopted by their dad, and Ghoul accepted Lada unconditionally with pure love from the start. And Lada just realizes this as he realizes he killed Ghoul. And I'm like, holy shit, Ghoul is dying. But actually Ghoul is still alive. So Lada tells Ghoul to run away, and Ghoul is just like, nah, bro, I'm gonna die here. I'm never gonna run again. And as Ghoul dies, he smashes the Schwarzette's Gundam system, and he just falls back in his seat, and he's ready to die. And then, oh, thank God, Felsi, at the last freaking second. Felsi shows up, Felsi saves Ghoul, and Felsi is so freaking pissed that Ghoul and Lada are in the middle of killing each other. Oh, thank God, I knew Ghoul wouldn't die, but this was a great fake-out death, and this is also the best Felsi thing, the best Felsi moment of the entire show, because she saved Ghoul. Now Ghoul's going to marry her instead. It's not even funny, but there we go. Felsi is the hero of the episode. Alright, so back inside the Quiet Zero, the Haros are going to blast everyone. Elon 5 steals the gun from Bell, who didn't want to use it. Someone throws a chaff grenade at the Haro and kills it. It's just the first time a Haro has died in Gundam. Anyway, so the team gets past the Haros, and they go down another corridor. Bell is helping Mireen to get to the computer console, and she's trying to shut down the Quiet Zero because she knows all Prosper's passwords. But surprise! Prosper shows up at this point and reveals, fuck you, she changed her password. So then we're back at the battle outside. Soletta and Eri are fighting. Eri is winning. Prosper shows up. Prosper is being mad, evil. He's justifying that she just wants her baby to live. She just wants Eri to live. And Mirren gets pissed at her, and she's like, Prosper, what the hell? Soletta loves you. Soletta is suffering, and Prosper only cares about Eri. And Mirren is just trying to hack away at Prosper's computer. And then, oh, Bell still has the gun. I guess Elon 5 actually had his own gun. Okay, cool, whatever. Anyway, Elon 5 shoots another Haro to death, and Bell is going to take a shot at Prospera, and she shoots her, but then the Haro blocks it. And then for some reason, while hacking the computer asks Mirren to enter the DNA of tomatoes, because somehow Mirren's mom's tomato computer data was buried deep inside the Quiet Zero, and thankfully Mirren actually remembers the specific tomato DNA that had the text from her mom in it that Soletta just had to tell her about because there wasn't time for her to learn that information organically. Did Delling put this tomato information in the computer? Why the hell is it there? It makes zero sense. Anyway, at the same time, Elon finally gets a headshot on Prosper, shoots her right between the eyes, right in the mask. I'm guessing the mask took the bullet, but yeah, he knocks the mask off her with a gun bullet, and that's very dramatic. So the Quiet Zero dramatically shuts down at this point, I guess mostly from the hacking, but I also want to think Prosper's mask falling out counted too. Anyway, Prosper is fine, but now she has her true face exposed, and strangely, Mirren is very, very cool with her at this point, because she just wants her to stop being crazy, and she just wants her to be a normal mother-in-law for their gay marriage. Now, at this point, it could have almost been a happy ending, but at this point, the SAL moves forward to nuke the Quiet Zero from orbit with their solar system array. The Pale Witches and the real Elon are on board watching this all go down, and this is seemingly even worse than the solar system in the original Mobile Suit Gundam, the one that traumatized Amuro, because this one has a massive firing rifle, and so it just fires this pinpointed beam, and baby Eri sees it coming, so she pivots all the G-bits in front of the beam to use them as a shield to save her family, and all the G-bits get fried. Baby Eri dies Oh God, baby Eri died. She died a hero protecting her family. No, baby Eri, no. She was already dead, but now she's dying again. And Prospero is like, oh my God, why? And Soletta is like, whoa. And anyway, it's a very freaky moment. Everyone's freaked out. But wait, the Ariel's core is still intact, so she might still be okay. But Prospero is freaking the shit out that Eri might have died again. And Prospera, as she's freaking out, she has this like permanent scarring on her face. I guess from doing all the gun work. I guess that's what Prospera was actually hiding under her helmet. It's a very nice twist. Anyway, that was a freaking badass ending. Wow. That was everything I was expecting in the final battle, but it was also another typical G-Witch episode where Soletta only had 3 minutes of screen time and most of the story was conveyed by Mirin's action and the general politics of the world. So some key takeaways from this episode. This episode was pretty much a final conclusion to many of the situations that were running all through the show. Like in the second season, we really rushed through a bunch of the plot points. I kind of at this point don't think they're going to perfectly wrap up everyone's loose ends, but at least they're trying to. Like Shadiq was done in this episode. Like he didn't do anything in this episode. He appeared for a second. Why they even let him out of prison mystifies me. Ghoul and Lada, they pretty much resolved their fight in this episode. An argument broke out over the past week about whether or not Ghoul would survive this fight with Lada, especially because he was using his outdated Episode 1 Delanza. I, for one though, did not think for a second Ghoul was going to die in this fight. I'm honestly surprised that Lada got as close as he did in terms of killing him. Like, don't get me wrong, Lada was unstable, Lada was ridiculous, and this fight was kind of nuts. The fact it even happened was even more nuts. And yeah, the Gundam Shores, it was cool, but you barely got to see it fight. It only fought this one time against Ghoul. Like, why the fuck is this even happening when we should be focusing on Prosper and the Quiet Zero? They have way more important drama going on. Like, the fight seemed like an afterthought, something they just had to throw in there because they had set it up over so many episodes slowly throughout the season. Like, I feel if the show had planned to go on longer, this fight probably should have been its own episode so we could just, focus on, the Prosper Eri drama. But instead, it's a minor distraction in the back seat while the Prosper Eri drama plays out on the main stage of the episode. But yeah, all the same, considering that all 3 of the main boys have their own, situations going on. Ghoul had the most growth as a person, so I just really didn't see him dying like a chump like this. A lot of people thought he had nothing left to live for after he gave Mirin back to Soletta, but that's garbage. Number 1, he's got Felsi. Number 2, he's the heir to the once great Chaturk house. And if he dies, who's going to rebuild his father's empire? Certainly not Lada. Lada's a nutso. Anyway, so yeah, the other 2 big fights playing out in this episode were Soletta versus Eri and Prosper versus Mirin. And yeah, Earth House, Bell, Kananji, they were all there too. Also, what the hell happened to Kananji? Did he leave the fight? I feel like he would have been way more down to take Prospera out in this episode, especially considering their history together, because don't forget, Kananji killed Prospera's husband. He definitely would have handled the gunfight better than the kids did. What happened to him? He was surprisingly useless, when the action started. Now, in this episode, everyone had to fight evil horrors with machine guns. That was just silly. I know Prospera had, some men under her control. She had a decent pirate crew running the Quiet Zero upstairs. I'm surprised none of them came down here. I guess the main reason they used the Haros was just as a plot contrivance because the Haros are ridiculously easy to stop, and that way we didn't have to see Choo-Choo or Elon murder anybody today, though. Elon got very close with that headshot on Prosper. Still though, I don't get why Mirin's mom's computer data was in the super core of the Quiet Zero. What was up with that? Did I miss something there? I know Delling was involved in the building of the Quiet Zero, but they said in the last episode that most of his contribution was left on Planet Quetta. So I don't know why this was in there. Maybe something Delling had was cannibalized in the Quiet Zero's OS. Anyway, props to Mirin for actually calling out that Prosper has been such a shitty mom over the course of the show for how she's treated Soletta. This entire show, I thought there was more to it than that. The way, Prosper was treating Soletta. Maybe Prosper regretted her. Maybe Prosper, didn't respect her for being a clone. maybe like deep down inside Prosper resented Soletta, but it seems like ultimately it was none of that, and they were just holding back on like Prosper and Soletta's like feelings towards each other just so they could like make a big scene out of it in the last episode. So that's kind of shitty. Like, seemingly Prospera and Miriam's arc for all the long-term bullshit and all the manipulation, it just came down to Miriam finally standing up to Prospera and calling her a shitty mom, which is like something she does to her own parents all the time, but Soletta was never going to do it. She was too pure. Anyway, let's talk about the main spectacle of this episode, which was the Soletta versus Eri fight. Soletta was mostly trying to get Eri to stand down peacefully because Soletta loves Eri, and Eri loves Soletta back, so she was also doing her part to try and disable the Caliburn without hurting Soletta. It's weird that for these last couple of episodes, though, Eri has finally fully exerted her free will and ideals, and I can't tell if that's character growth or if she's just like somehow growing because the Quiet Zero has given her this opportunity to become alive again. But despite that, Soletta is trying to stop Eri and her mom because the Quiet Zero is too large a threat to global stability. Like, I guess if the Quiet Zero was ever fully finished, it could potentially destroy all technology on Earth, like putting Earth and space into like a Stone Age situation, at least in terms of the fact that everything uses permit and the Quiet Zero shuts down permit. So yeah, the Quiet Zero is mostly just a threat to all machinery running on permit. Despite that though, I feel like in this episode, G-Witch was trying to do its own thing on like what Gundam narrative was about. I really need to put up my Gundam narrative review one of these days, but to keep it short, if you haven't seen Narrative did an awesome job at recontextualizing the concept of what death is in the Gundam franchise. And it really explores the weird, murky territory that previous Gundam series have like reduced and dragged down the concept of death by introducing new types, introducing new type ghosts, introducing post-death shared hallucination, and the fact that some people in Gundam somehow become more powerful dead than they were alive. G-Witch has essentially taken that concept another step forward, or rather another step in its own direction. Step forward, gain 2 and all that. And it did all that with Eri and Prosper's argument that if you can see Eri and talk to Eri, is Eri actually dead? Which is a whole like philosophical question in its own right. But this whole episode explores that and breaks it down even further, bringing it down to this three-way battle, this three-way argument between Soletta, Eri, and Prosper, and about how each of them handle Eri's death differently, and about how each of them want Eri to continue existing going forward. Because Prospera is fundamentally this mourning woman who just cannot handle Eri's death, and is doing every unethical thing under the sun she can do to bring her back, which is like beautiful, which is like, you know, this like existential concept that if your child died, wouldn't you do everything you could possibly do to try and bring them back, even if it was illegal, even if it was unethical. That's literally what Prosper is as a character. Then we got Soletta. Soletta loves Eri, but I think Soletta like is just not on board with the Quiet Zero, so I guess Soletta just wants everything to go back to the way it was, and wants Eri to go back to being a Gundam, I guess. And then at the same time, Eri has like slowly like made her own case for herself, seemingly despite the fact she wants to come back. In this episode, at the end of things, she seems to have also made peace with herself and the fact that she probably like doesn't really value her life that highly. So she threw her life away again to save Prosper and Soletta and all her like school friends because she doesn't want anyone to die. Now, I think Eri is too pure to die. I think Eri's probably going to come back in the next episode because they ended this on a cliffhanger and they showed that the Ariel's torso was still intact. If they want Eri to be dead, they would have just shown it like being like vaporized to bits. But I think if she doesn't come back, it does seem like at the end of this episode, she did fully like make peace with her own death, like she fully accepted it, and she realized that she was kind of a strain on her family, or at the very least she was causing like conflict between Prosper and Soletta. Anyway, from start to finish, G-Witch has turned into this massive Shakespearean drama about this dead baby. And yeah, this episode definitely was mostly focused on that dead baby as a concept. I think if Eri has died here, it would be a good place for the show to end her story at. And I think that would like lead the final episode to just be an epilogue, let Eri's fate be sealed, and move on to Prospera having some kind of closure. Plus, it would make sense that if Eri is now finally dead, then maybe Prospera can finally accept Soletta into her heart and like the family can heal. Anyway, this show has a bad tendency to time jump, so for all we know, like the next episode could jump forward to like several years in the future. The Quiet Zero could be a memory and we'll just be like at Soletta and Mirin's wedding and Prospera will be in jail. Maybe she'll get some kind of a pardon because, I mean, Mirin is the present and Mirin does want Prospera to go back to normal, but we're back into a wait and see kind of thing, so wow. I can't believe the next episode is the end of G-Witch. It's been quite a ride, Soletta and Mercury. I still am very, very much holding out hope that there will be a third season or like a sequel movie, but wow. That was it. Alright, see you guys next week for our last Gundam Witch for Mercury episode. Unless there's season 3. Alright, later, please subscribe. Good night.